Hello and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good time of day to you. Welcome back to the LAMDA log, week 7, day 4, Thursday, the 5th of March, 2026. We had our warm up in John Wood and we jumped right into rehearsal. And we had another warm up with rehearsal, which was fun. We did some just centering, really feeling the ground on our feet and kind of putting our mind and thinking from our feet, and then rolling down to the ground, and then being on our hands and knees and doing some spine loosening, and then in child's pose, and then in cobra, and then I'm just remembering it all, and then kind of making our way back up. And then we did a tongue twister. We did the what to do to die today at a minute to two, or at a minute or two to two, a thing distinctly hard to say yet harder still to do. And you'll beat a drum, and you'll beat a tattoo at a minute. No, and you'll beat a tattoo at 20 till 2 at a rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat- day at a minute or two to two. More or less, that's it. And then we played Zip Zap Zoo, but we only had one life. And Ollie did not win. He got out even before the end, and nobody grabbed the it's mine, the schlack. And so the schlack thrower won. So then we had some presentations. I wasn't called for rehearsal today, so I mostly did independent work, and then I took some notes on presentations. But we had a presentation on courtship. So there's big gender separation, and Alonso and Inés's meeting in the fair scene is fairly scandalous. Men would stare at women and follow them home and hope that they would talk to them or receive them, or give them a token. And there was always had to be a chaperone. You weren't allowed to be alone. Women gained honor through modesty and sexual purity, while men showed their honor by and reputation through public deeds and showing it off. There was kind of a ritual of courtship that the men would demonstrate, the women would judge, and if deemed worthy, they would leave a token, and then you'd proceed forward, and the men would declare favor by wearing the token, and then send poetry and sing songs and come to their window every night. The courtship was very rarely private. You would say that you're plucking the turkey if you're like becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. You'd also say pidiendo la conversión, which is becoming novios or boyfriend girlfriend. Women could have many novios, but changing frequently could hurt one's reputation. So the novio should visit the window every night. Fathers had the final say on if they would let them into the house for marriage, but women still had the say and choice. And then marriage was to prepare a home. Even though there was a romantic side to it, that wasn't the most important thing. It was about coming together to form a home. And then another presentation on women. And so the general feeling was Eve was bad and was a sinner, therefore women are bad and are sinners. And this kind of time period was kind of the beginning of feminism, though. A good woman can make you better, which, still has a ways to go, but is better than women are inherently evil. And Juan Rodriguez de Padron actually claimed that women were better. And part of it had to do with the difference in genitalia, that women's was more private and more modest, and men's was kind of out there, and therefore they were more lascivious and lustful and less chaste and less pure creatures. And then Alvaro de Luna, he wrote a list of great women, and he was also the constable and confidant of King Don Juan II, who I am playing. And he was put to death for being too close to the king and probably having homosexual relations with him. But there were some bad eggs as well. Pere Toroella, I think. He wrote The Slander of Women, which was just bad-mouthing women. And they used to have literary fights where they would fight each other through letter and through published works, so that you could you could like write in someone's style and be like, "Oh, you're so stupid. Look, this is me like mocking you." Shout out Sandridge. And then women were actually able to have many jobs, and so sorry. No, women. There are two kind of advancements were either to marry or to join a convent. They did have some freedom in work. Like they were allowed to run small businesses and things if they're like within their purview. But veils were this huge thing. Women wore veils to hide. The men said their lustful beauty. That's how it started. But then it gave them anonymity, and if you bought a nice veil, that people might think your nobility, and then this and that, and so forth. And then it was outlawed, but it didn't really work. Just people kept wearing them, and it allowed women to travel with a little more freedom and impunity. And it's important to think how men entering a space of women might change things, especially with Alonso entering like the house space. And then we had Spanish nobility. So in the hierarchy, you had at the bottom of the list going up, conversos and mariscos. So, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure mariscos means shrimp. And that's what they called the Moors, the Muslims. And so conversos were converted Jews and mariscos were Islamic Moors. And so there was laws on la limpieza de sangre, which is the purity of blood. And then above them, you had the pecheros, which were tax-paying commoners, but they were industrious and they could have businesses and they could be fairly wealthy, but they were, but what really set them apart was like their tax-paying status. They're really middle class. And then you had the lower nobilities, the hidalgos, and they didn't need to pay taxes, and they were able to carry weapons. Some were actually poorer than the pecheros because they didn't have income and things, and it was about 10% of the population. Then you had the nobleza, which are the nobility, which is dukes and counts, etc. And then on the top, of course, you had the monarchy with the king and the queen, and their favorites kind of leached in there a little bit too. Then honor was inherited, not earned. So you could lose honor, but you couldn't really earn it. It was based on a woman's chastity. Her honor was too, so that could be lost. There was the Castilian Civil War, which is where our story happens a lot of. And then King John II, Don Juan, our king, he was a real king, and our play depicts him. The queen was his second wife, Isabella of Portugal, and he probably had a relationship with Alvaro de Luna, who was the women's advocate. Then we had lunch. Then people started rehearsal, and I took lunch. And we continued with some presentations after lunch, and since I'm not called today. So we had performance history. We just had one presentation afterwards. So this is the performance of El Caballero de Olmedo, and the specific translation that we're using by David Johnston. Yeah, Johnston. So the original play was written between 1620 and 1625. There's no record of a first performance, but in 1617, Lope de Vega wrote a dance called El Baile del Caballero de Olmedo, and it was kind of his first dabbling in writing this story. And then Tello is a gracioso, and he's the bridge between nobility and common people. La Barraca in 1930s was a production by Lorca, and it was really significant. It's kind of like what a lot of people think about when they think of El Caballero de Olmedo. David Johnston's translation really brought this story to the English theater in 1991. It was at the Gate Theater in a building and theater that's smaller than the PJ Ross studio, which is crazy to think because we shove maybe like we can fit 50 people and still have a playable space. But Lorca and Alonso's lives and deaths were eerily similar. And so there's a lot of fun connections there. And then I just worked on research mostly and other things leading up to the end of the day. And that was it. So I got a short video for y'all today. It's Friday. So we'll see how it goes. But I love you a lot. So hope you have a great day. Goodbye.